15.
Sorry.
Sorry? Why sorry?
Because we're going to annoy some of you.
I don't know yet. Day 15 of the Genesis of Androzani Advent Calendar for 2019. We're over halfway now. Over halfway there. Though, not halfway if you're a patron. Patreon.com/Genesis of Androzani. If you like to get exclusive access and requesting videos for us to do, and early access, except for this month. However, you may not get early access to days 1 to 25, but you will get early access to days 26 to 31.
Ooh!
Which will be released to the public in the new year week by week, but you'll get it all in 1 week, day by day, extended calendar.
Cool.
So yeah, if you're a patron, now you're halfway, or almost halfway. Halfway into the next video will be halfway. Though in duration it might be a bit, because some videos are half an hour, some are
2 seconds.
4 hours.
Oh yeah.
There's one I filmed that's 4 hours. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Cool.
It would have come out by now. You all know what it is.
Cool. Still not the longest video on this channel, but
No, not by a long shot. I think the longest video...
Game of Thrones still, isn't it?
Nope. I don't think it is anymore. Hang on. I'm going to quickly check. At the time of this recording, don't think it is anymore.
Okay.
I'm going to have a look at my videos. I think I uploaded one recently that was pretty long. The Phantom Menace review.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's not longer. Phantom Menace review is 4 hours 38. Game of Thrones is 5 hours 15.
That's right.
But there might be something else. I'm just gonna quickly scroll. Okay, I don't. Oh no, my live streams have all been under 5 hours. There was one that was 4 hours 55. So Game of Thrones recap is still the longest, but by this point in the calendar, who knows? Maybe something will surpass it.
I don't know.
Maybe something will surpass it soon. I guess you'll find out. But yes, we are on day 15 of the Genesis of Androzani Advent Calendar for 2019. Now, 2 days ago, on the 13th, we did a video called the 10 Underrated Stories. Hope you all enjoyed that. Let us know what you thought of that. But naturally, because we did that video, we now have to do 10 Overrated Stories. The rules work the same way, in the sense that we have 10, they're not in a particular order. If we'll snap if we have any of the same within the 10. But even though they have the same rules, this is a much harder video to do. I think because I think calling something underrated is a noble, feat in the sense that you're trying to stick up for something that's often, hated.
Overlooked.
Like Creature from the Pit. If I'm like, oh, Creature from the Pit's underrated, they're like, oh, that's a bit of stupid stuff. Why do you like that? It's like, oh, I like it. And someone might be like, oh, okay, whatever. You like that silly thing. But this one is more so targeting things people like and criticizing them. So, yes.
Of course, this is just our opinion.
Oh yeah, no, of course.
Listen, we're not saying you're right or wrong. I know that's sort of become a bit of a catchphrase of mine. It is completely hyperbole and a joke. I like to see people have completely differing opinions to me on this show because I find that interesting and I like hearing what people have to say.
As do I.
Probably when you disagree with us.
Or have already done so.
Yeah? Put it in the comments. Let us know your thoughts. Let's have a conversation about it. All we ask is just be civil to one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys are pretty cool about that, though. We
far.
generally don't get shitty comments.
Yeah,
it's great.
There's a couple, but most 99% of you are brilliant.
Yeah, we love you guys. That's why we keep making this stuff.
Yeah. But, yeah, this is just our opinion, and even if we say we think something's overrated, it doesn't even mean we think it's bad. Like, we might think it's good, just not as good as people say.
Yeah. That's very true for a lot of mine.
Now, there are two options we could go for here. We could either rock, paper, scissors again, or I could go first, considering Considering you went first last time.
You go first. You jumped straight into the fire.
I shouldn't have done that. Put the pressure on myself. Well, considering that the pressure's on me,
yes,
I'm not going to waste any breath.
Yes.
or go easy on it. I'm gonna
Yes.
strike hot with a very popular story
Yes.
from Series 5.
Ooh.
The Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone.
Interesting. Explain yourself, sir.
So, obviously, I think Stephen Moffat, when this came out, said that Blink was meant to be Alien, and this was meant to be the aliens to Blink's Alien. I suppose, in a sense, it is. But for me, the nickname I always give this story is the Doctor Who Haunted House Ride. The reason why is because I feel this story is style over substance. Very
Substance?
style over substance. Mixing my
But
words.
yes, no, but yes.
Yeah. It's very well directed.
Yes, it's
Very well acted. It's one of Matt's best performances as the Doctor. In fact, it was the first one he ever filmed, and he was brilliant. River Song is actually, well, there's some bits in there that I'm a bit like, ugh. But I think she's actually rather good in this. Though the first scene's a bit weird, but whatever. It's very nitpicky, the parts I don't like, but for the most part, I think she makes a really good side character. It's all fine. The characters are fine for the most part. The story, well, in terms of like the way it plays out, there are parts that I dislike in the sense that I don't like how the crack was implemented into it, because it now means that if the Doctor hadn't gone there, it would have turned out the same. It's a little bit of a, nothing plot in that sense. But, very well directed, very well edited. It's very well paced. It looks amazing.
some really good sense of tension as well.
Has great tension, great score.
Oh god, yeah.
And it's very high tempo, hard hitting horror. But it lacks heart. That's my biggest problem. I think if this story was made during the Davies era, it would be an all-time classic. But I don't think it is, because it lacks a fundamental part of Doctor Who that I value, and that's a focus on the heart of the story surrounding the characters. Because you do get some character moments in the story, like, for example, I don't remember the guy's name, but it's the guy who plays, or it's Ian Glenn who plays Jorah Mormon. His character it's like he's meant to be one of River's boyfriends or something. And there's something there, but I don't feel that much sympathy when all of the side characters die than I do in something like Silence in the Library.
Or even Daleks in Manhattan.
Yes.
Which is a great example of really good side characters. Just to follow up on the last video. Well, the video before. But
I think that's, just to pile on top of controversy, I like Daleks in Manhattan more than this story.
I'm going to have to agree with you. I don't think it's overrated necessarily. I think it's quite strong. Though I do agree with you that I find it does lack some of that heart that I do look for in the show. That being said, the directing, the pacing, the music, the sound design, all that is on top form. They're really firing on all cylinders. It's a really strong story. It's just, and also the pitch on paper sounds great. It is to Alien for the Weeping Angels what Aliens is, except for the fact that I think there is a fundamental difference in the functionality of the Xenomorphs and the functionality of the Weeping Angels, which makes the Xenomorphs, when you have multiple of them, translate really well into a big blockbuster, whereas the Weeping Angels, it doesn't necessarily weaken them as a threat, but it devalues them from a narrative sense, if that makes sense.
And I also don't like how they move.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Obviously, his creations, he can do whatever the fuck he wants with them. Personal preference, I would have preferred never saw them move.
And also another thing is, I prefer the threat that they posed in Blink of traveling you back to the past. I found that way more interesting than in this story, where he kind of turned them into the Vashta Narada a bit.
Yeah.
Which was ill-fitting for the Angels.
Hell, if this story was about the Vashta Narada instead of the angels,
Oh.
it would have been awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
it is really good, as we say, but it's just the Weeping Angels don't necessarily feel out of place, but slightly misused, as well as there being lacking a bit of that heart that makes us so fond of the Davies era. Which, yeah, that's. I do agree with
I
you.
also hate the final scene when Amy tries to rape the Doctor.
Oh god, that's this episode, isn't it? Yeah,
Flesh
yeah,
and
yeah.
Stone.
Yeah,
Or as Lord Sly called it, flesh on flesh.
It's quite an off-putting scene because generally Amy is quite an endearing character, but
This is also the night before her wedding.
yeah, that scene.
It also comes right before the Vampires of Venice.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't feel right. Like even if the whole story was she's feeling conflicted, she's in her own personal love triangle. Her doing this action at that time doesn't feel like it was earned based on what was set up in terms of a crisis of confidence in her love or whatever. Because there's not been enough of that conflict with Rory to fully establish her snogging the Doctor without it seeming just like, what the fuck? Huh? And not being like, oh, that's the choice she made because of how she was feeling. It felt very spontaneous and off. I don't know.
I mean, even Moffat himself says he regrets that scene. He doesn't
Yeah.
like it, execution-wise. It's a very polished, well-made story with, it like I said, it's a glorified haunted house ride. It's the perfect haunted house ride. Very scary, very well acted, very atmospheric, good score, and a fast-paced plot. But I just think it's good and not great
Same.
because it's lacking a certain something.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
What is your first choice for an overrated story?
Where to start? Tell you what, you've had a dig at old Moff. I'm gonna have a dig at old Russ.
Are you?
Yes.
How hard is this gonna hurt?
Not hugely, I don't think.
Okay.
The Christmas Invasion.
Oh, that hurts a bit.
Because
That hurts a bit. I do like that story.
I do like the story too. And it functions well as an introduction to the Doctor, but it is just alien invasion story. It's not, obviously completely different circumstances behind the scenes, obviously, but compare that to the introduction of Christopher Eccleston's Doctor, and compare that to the introduction of even Matt Smith's Doctor,
Yeah.
and hell, even the introduction of Capaldi's Doctor.
I wouldn't agree with that. I prefer it to Deep Breath. I would disagree with that. But
Rose and the 11th Hour.
Hour.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I don't think it's not an indictment of any part of the story. I as you know, I was on the review for it.
Yeah.
I-
And it was a
yeah.
fucking load of fun.
Yeah, I love the episode, but I just don't think it's like a masterpiece as people say. It's not earth-shattering, it's not life-changing.
I will say though, I think my sort of frothing of it comes more from I enjoy it rather than it's a masterpiece episode, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, but it is, it's often, gets a lot of like love. Well-deserved love, but I just don't think it's sort of, midnight, turn left,
Oh, it's not that. No.
Blink, or, as I said, 11th Hour. I don't think it's on that tier of writing. Granted, I am aware if there was a rushed production schedule and stuff like that behind the scenes and all that going on. Don't dislike the episode. So that's what I'm starting off sort of lukewarm.
Okay.
But like,
Okay, you've hit.
Yeah.
So that was a soft hit.
yeah.
In the sense that you've targeted an episode that I really like, but you didn't destroy it.
No, I love the episode.
Yeah.
I really, really like the episode.
Okay.
I just don't think it's deserving of being
Okay.
hailed as like a classic.
I can
Yeah.
accept that one.
Yeah.
That's okay. Though I do love that episode.
Yeah.
I'm not holding back though.
Yes.
My next choice. So when I was talking about Time of Angels, there was one point I was going to bring up, but I've decided to hold on to it.
I think I know what it
For
is.
this
And I
one.
think I'm going to have to snap.
The Pandorica opens, and the Big Bang.
Actually, not.
Oh, you guessed wrong! The reason why is because the Big Bang and Flesh and Stone are linked.
Yeah.
Obviously because of the crack. Which is a story arc I've never been too fond of. No, I don't hate it. It's not like Series 6 or, like with the Doctor dying or, Missy or the Hybrid. It's not like that. But I don't know. I've always been very on the fence with the crack arc. So Russell, I was thinking, wouldn't it be so clever, seeing as Karen Gillan's got a nice bum, that I made the story arc about a crack.
Ew, I don't really think that's... It's just no. It's no.
Anyway, so the Pandorica opens. The first episode in that two-parter finale. I get it. I get why people like it. It's the Doctor being imprisoned by his enemies. But I find when you put them all together, it lessens them.
Yeah.
When you put all the enemies together, it doesn't feel like the versions of those villains I know, like when you've got like the Paradigm Daleks and the Cybermen and the Sontarans and the Sycorax are even in that, all paired together, that threat of every single villain the Doctor's ever faced feels less of a threat than one Dalek did.
Yeah.
In Dalek. Or
again,
there's a few other examples, but that whole thing of the Doctor facing up to all his villains, to me, it just doesn't hit the way that it does seem to for other people. The cliffhanger is very... How the fuck do you... As we were talking before in the Underrated video about the sound of drums, about how the fuck do you answer this? Get out of this. Doctor's locked away in the Pandorica box, and
then you literally...
And Amy's dead, and Rory's a...
Autumn.
Reborn, because he died in cold blood. Reborn Centurion Auton. So very big cliffhanger, but I don't know, I don't love the Pandorica opens. I find it's very good, but in hindsight I don't think it's quite I don't think it's quite up there.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll go more in depth if we get into a proper review. But I just find it to be very... It's focused on one specific thing, and that's the box itself, and revealing it. And it has the Matt Smith iconic speech in it.
It's J.J. Abrams' mystery box as done by Moffat.
But for me, it's not top tier stuff. However... Where my real criticism comes of this story is with part 2, The Big Bang, which is fun. It's fun. It's entertaining, but it's kind of pointless. Mm-hmm. It's a bit of a. When you lead someone like M&M's on the floor. But except it's Moffat.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time.
Like
I know what you mean. Yeah, leading a trail.
It's like leading a trail, except because it's Moffat, it's through like a mirror maze.
Yeah.
It's fun. Like it's a fun timey-wimey romp, but it's whatever. The Doctor does a bunch of wacky stuff, and he has affairs, and the TARDIS is exploding, and that's all leading up to the silence, which was never paid off. So in retrospect, it doesn't mean anything. And there are some really the Dalek, whatever, fucking River demasculating the Dalek, just forget it. I like the whole thing of Rory waiting by the box. I suppose it's a little bit over the top, but I like how he waited over. really shows his love for Amy, I suppose. There's some really
no more over the top than like the beach scene.
That's true. And we didn't actually have to. Well, one thing is we didn't actually have to sit and watch him wait. That would have been interesting.
None of us would have lived long enough.
Yeah, true. But what was I gonna say? But hang on. I had a point to make here. You've messed up my rhythm. Okay, so there's some of Matt Smith's best scenes in terms of his acting in the show, like when he's by young Amelia's bed and when he's sitting inside the box talking to Amy. That's really good. But outside of those individual little nuggets of gold, the actual plot of the story, for me, by the end of it, doesn't give me like a satisfying character arc conclusion. It's very much, we solved the problem, and that's it, and then Amy and Rory get married, and that's the end of the series. It's fun, fundamental fantasy finale, but it ain't got a touch on Russell. That's what I'm saying, and that's why I think it's overrated.
Fair dues.
Your second choice.
Speaking of Moffat finales, the wedding of River Song.
Not on my list, but that's because most YouTubers I watch hate it, so in my mind it's quite low.
In terms of YouTubers, generally I think it's not so popular, but on like rankings and stuff online I've seen it, and just word of mouth. And
yeah, go ahead though. I probably will agree with you on what you say though.
It's just a mess. My issue with it is, as cool as some of the ideas are in it, it's just so all over the place and not focused, and then it leads it to when when it's revealed with the eye thing, it's just not a satisfying conclusion to such a large confusing. Well, it's not confusing because I don't understand what's going on. It's confusing in the sense that it's weirdly structured, and just sort of it's
unnecessarily contrived.
Yeah, and it's
why do they get married?
Yeah, it's just
why?
Yeah, it's just especially because some of the stuff is paying off what was hinted at in Silence in the Library.
Yeah,
and it feels like a few years later, and it's just this big blockbustery special effectsy kind of extravaganza without the kind of wit that's in Pandorica Opens and The Big Bang. It doesn't have, because the thing is, you were complaining about the Time of Angels, is I think that episode, Pandorica Opens, does have quite a bit of heart to it at its core. Obviously not quite as much as I would say Russell does, but
it's got some.
Yeah, but this seems much more devoid of that, and it's just very...
Despite the fact that it revolves around quite an important thing, like the fact that it's a wedding.
Yeah, and you mentioned before style over substance. This is definitely, for me, a style over substance. I did it myself. Style over substance. Story. I get why people like it, especially if they like this interpretation of River. I'm much more of a fan of the River who we meet when she's with Tennant and when she's with Capaldi. I basically...
The oldest River.
The oldest, slightly more wiser...
And she's at her worst when she's at her youngest in Let's Kill Hitler.
Yeah. The sort of more... I'm much more of a fan of the wizened River. I haven't heard much of her big finish. I imagine
I've heard she's quite good in that.
Yeah, I'm sure she is.
Apparently, she's at her best with the 8th Doctor.
You know what? That makes sense. Anyway, yeah, Wedding of River Song. I completely get why people like it, but it just didn't do anything for me, and I found it frustratingly a bit stagnant for such a big episode.
Go check out Top 10 Worst Stories from last year's calendar if you want to hear my thoughts on that episode.
Ta-da!
What the hell? I just lost my phone. Oh, there it is. It was in between my wallet. Not moving too far forward, in fact. Moving one episode forward for me. A Christmas Carol, which comes right after The Big Bang.
I forgot about it. Yes.
Which one did you think I meant?
Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Oh, well. You were going to say Snap, weren't you?
Kind of spoil what one of my next ones will be. Anyway.
So I hear all the time that people say this is the best Christmas special.
Huh?
Yep. Especially Moffat era fans. I like Michael Gambon's acting, and I like the sort of concept that Moffat went for of the fact that I can't remember her name, but the lady he's in love with is stuck in a time box that has limited days.
Releases, yeah.
And of course, the final day, she has to die, and he waits all his life because he doesn't want her to die.
Yeah.
And then obviously, at the very end, he releases her. Obviously, she will die, but they do it because it's Christmas or something. But there is good stuff. It's not terrible like the Christmas special that came 1 year after that, but it's just so... Why does it have to be so Christmas? Like, I just don't like it. It's so cheese, and it's Charles Dickens, exactly the same story but with slightly different aspects because it's Moffat.
To be fair, one slight defense of just that aspect of it, so many TV shows have a Christmas special where they'll just retell a version of A Christmas Carol.
And I think that sucks, regardless of the show.
Blackadder did it best. Blackadder did it
You know
best.
who do it worst? The WWE. You remember that?
What the fuck?
2010, I think. It was when it was like the Michael Cole, Miz, Alex Riley trio. Anyway, but A Christmas Carol,
That's genuinely sent shivers down my spine.
it's cheesy. It's obviously not an original story. Has interesting ideas, but the tone makes it less enjoyable for me. Because it's longer, there's a lot of filler. Like, there's this whole sequence where he's fighting off some flying fish with his sonic screwdriver. I just don't give a shit about that. Matt Smith, the first episode in his run where he really irritates me is this one. Because in Series 5, there's little bits and pieces here and there that I was a little bit nitpicked by. But this is the first one where he properly gets on my nerves. And whilst I like the music, I like the whole song they sing, there's too much of it. I find that the music gets so drawn out that it loses me. And there's something else I don't like about it as well. It's so... This to me, this is the first episode of Moffat's era where you can pinpoint and say he's trying to get the American audience. It's this one. You can just tell because it feels like an American Christmas special.
But it feels like... Because the thing is, in phrasing... When we talk about negatively about the sort of Americanization of Doctor Who, that's not to say American television is bad. Far from it.
Some of it's great.
Some of it is the best stuff. I mean, Breaking Bad, I know that's the obvious choice, but in terms of cinematic language and pacing and writing and character justification, Breaking Bad is the fucking messiah. Anyway, a Scotsman writing about a very distinctly British show with this kind of American, and not even American TV, but American blockbusters. American blockbuster sort of...
Oh yeah, Amy and Rory are on a ship and they're on their honeymoon and she's in the police uniform thing and the kissogram thing and he's in the Centurion and they've obviously just had their wedding. And the ship's gonna crash into... It's like Voyage of the Damned, but the ship's not the plot. That's the threat.
Yeah.
Jake's gonna hate this episode. Jake's gonna hate this episode. And he's gonna loathe the one after that, 1 year later, even more. So...
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just... There's many reasons why I could criticize this story, but if there's one word to sum up why I don't like it as much and think it's overrated, is just cheese. just lots of cheese. It gets under my skin. What's your next choice? Your third? Yes.
Carrying on by one episode from there. Asylum of the Daleks.
No, it's not. That's one series later.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've had this exact conversation once before.
Snap!
Snap!
Not only... I know you got something to say, but I'll just quickly give a little paragraph. Now, there's a lot of episodes in this 10 for me that...
Oh, fucking astronaut!
You forgot all about Series 6. You just went 5 to 7. Anyway, so
Ooh,
most of the...
His Wedding of River Song's the end of 6, isn't it?
Yeah, but then that's Doctor Wit in the Wardrobe, then...
Oh, so
some
that's
of
right. Doctor Within the Wardrobe is... Yes.
I said one after from the Big Bang is Christmas Carol.
Gotcha.
Pay attention. Now, in terms of Asylum of the Daleks, so a lot of episodes on this 10 for me, I don't actually think are bad. Most of them I think are overrated, but not bad. But this one, this is my least favorite Dalek story ever. I think it's an appalling piece of shit. And why is it ranked on the same level as the Hartnell Dalek trilogy and Midnight and Waters of Mars and Doomsday on the DWM? Why? This for me is the most overrated Doctor Who. Like I said with Gridlock and the Underrated, this is the most overrated Doctor Who story ever. That's my thoughts. You give yours.
It's not very good. Okay, what's your next one?
Do you not have something to say?
Oh, you've basically said it. I just... the thing that really irks me about it is the sort of complete warping of Amy and Rory. Like, the frivolous, the Dalek lore stuff and having these Daleks being advertised and then only being in it for cameos. You know what? That doesn't really matter in terms of the story itself. But what really bothers me is I get what Moffat was going for in terms of relationships deteriorate. That's a very human thing. But again, there's this gap. There's this missing piece of information.
Well, there is Pond Life, but that's a piece of shit.
It's written by Chibnall, I think, and we only really get them sort of deteriorating in the last sort of 2 minutes. It's very rushed and sudden. I get what he was going for, and he'd be like, "Oh, this will be a nice, change of pace for the start." But I think it would have been much more pertinent to have in series 6 have their relationship slowly deteriorate. Series 5. They come together and it ends with them unionizing. Unionizing? Like they're a workforce? You know what I mean. But in this one, it just feels like the dialogue they're saying doesn't even sound like them but bitter. It sounds like completely different characters. And that really bothers me. It just, especially for their last few episodes, all of them except for maybe Town Called Mercy after this, Amy and Roy just felt off until they left. And it's a shame, because I genuinely really like Amy and Rory, even in episodes I really don't like in the prior 2 seasons. And that's my big beef with it.
And you've forgotten about one other thing. It's the debut of Clara.
What the fuck? It's the debut of Clara. Though, funny thing, she's actually something I don't mind in this episode. She's catchphrasy and stuff. The story around her is bollocks, her being turned into a secret Dalek. But in terms of...
There's something about that souffle shit that always irks me. I don't know why. It's so weird. Why is that the metaphor?
Ding, ding.
I don't mind her. I don't mind her in the Snowmen.
She's great in the Snowmen. I will defend her in the Snowmen.
I don't mind her in the Snowmen. I can't do this one. It's so... Oh, God. She's just... It's whatever.
Clara. Okay, what's...
And the Daleks forget the Doctor, but then they don't.
What's yours?
So I suppose it's my 5th choice now, right?
Yes.
Well, going for what technically would have been the next story. The Impossible Astronaut. and Day of the Moon. So now I've just said 3 stories in a row, haven't I? Pandorica and His Big Bang, then A Christmas Carol, and then Pot Splash and Day of the Moon. Now, what do I think of this story? I think the silence, obviously, no question, great concept, no doubt about that. Great concept. But not even in their first story do I think they're executed well. One moment that really ruins them for me is in the bathroom when they kill that old lady with the lightning. Does not explain why they don't do it ever again. Ooh, lightning. This is the story when they go to Utah and the doctor dies for some reason. And then at the end of obviously, this again, like, you know, how we're talking about the Big Bang and how retroactively the silence arc damages that because it didn't lead to fuck all. This is the same. The fact that the finale, Wedding River Song, which you had on your list, doesn't pay off this. Rewatching it, I get nothing out of it because I'm like, this does not lead to anything at all, and it makes no sense. How is the two-parter resolved? The doctor does a little thing with a phone and waves his wand around. The silence stand there and do nothing. Why? I don't know. Well directed, well acted, similar to Time of Angels. Well acted, very atmospheric, but I don't love this story because I don't think it works. And it's too American. Is it your 5th?
My 5th. I feel like I should go for a non-Matt Smith one this time.
Classic or new?
New. I don't actually have any classic on my list.
Well, because is there such thing as overrated classic Who?
No, not that I can think
Oh,
of.
it's just good. It's just great television.
Yeah.
Even the bad stuff, it's all just great television.
It's either good or underrated.
It's either good or underrated, or it's magnificently bad.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to do one that's going to hurt a little less. I do think this episode's very good. I was there for the reaction for it. But I don't think it's a midnight. It's the same deal as the Christmas Invasion. For what it is, works incredibly well. That it's not timeless. I think it's a little tiny bit formulaic. I've watched it since we did the review. I think my rating's still the same. I still think it's very, very good and very, very strong. I just don't think it is as brilliant as people say.
I think I know what this is now.
What do you think?
Is it School Reunion?
It's School Reunion. I love Sarah Jane in it. It's always great to see Elizabeth Sladen. She works really well with David Tennant. It's good. It's really good. I like it a lot. I just don't think it's a masterpiece. I don't have much more to say.
Okay,
than that.
what's bad about it aside from Rose?
Well, that's the big thing. Well, they even make K9 funny. It's just that I don't think it's an all-time great. The pacing is a little bit... Oh, God. I mean, I suppose it's the point because it's a bit sort of traditional in its 45-minute format. And it is only series 2. I just... When I hear people sort of really, really praise it, I just... It's a good nostalgia showcase, but it doesn't ever rise above that for me. It doesn't have any lasting impact beyond. It's so good to see Elizabeth Sladen again.
Right.
You know.
What about the Krillitane, Anthony Stewart Head?
He's great. He's a really good villain. Shame he was wasted on a Monster of a Week.
Yeah, but this is quite an important episode, though. To be fair, for the audience at least, I think
it's quite a key part of, I guess, Tennant's run because it's firstly a bit of the oncoming storm shit. But I just, as I said, again, this is a personal preference thing. I just don't think.
What about Mickey?
He's fine. He's good in it.
I
He's
think
funny.
He's great.
He's,
I think he works really well with both Sarah Jane and K9.
he's good. I don't dislike him. I don't dislike the episode, as I've said. I think it's really, really strong. I just don't think... It just, for me, personally, I just don't hold it in that sort of angelic regard that's reserved for the hall of heaven-sent wannabes. Well, actually, it should be midnight wannabes, but which heaven-sent is, but just makes it in. Anyway, it's
not meant to be that, though.
It's not, but I've seen a lot of people praise it as if it is, and that's why I'm saying it's overrated.
Because when I gave it my obscenely high score of 9.5 in the review, one of the reasons I gave for that is similar to why I gave Father's Day a 10, is because I rate things based on what they set out to do. So there are some episodes that are bigger and smaller, and there are some episodes that are more significant than others. However, for me, it depends on what you achieve within the parameters you set for yourself.
No, that's
And I think School Reunion is a not perfect, but extremely good small episode.
No, it absolutely is, and I agree with you, and I reviewed it as such as well. That's how I rank things myself.
You gave it a 7.5.
Yeah, I've got, because I'm a bit stricter than you, but I do have...
Jake gave it a 7.
Yeah, but I've got categories in my brain that I break it down, characters, story, blah, 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 and what takes importance depending on what the story is. But I just don't think it's a one for all time kind of thing, even as what it is, even within the category that it's in as a small episode.
Can you maybe, because obviously you were like, it's not midnight or heaven sent.
Yeah.
Can you compare it to something that's more similar?
I think both Smith and Jones and fucking what's it called?
Which series?
Opening of Partners in Crime.
All right. 2
small, funny episodes. One character is returning, comedic character returning from the past, even though obviously Donna at that point wasn't as significant as Sarah Jane and probably still isn't, but she's quite a key part in the Davies era. But I think those kind of small episodes and the way they are structured, the way they are paced, the music, the editing, everything, I think for me personally, those two fire on all cylinders much better than this one does. I do really like those 2 episodes. Yeah. I don't dislike the episode. I just want to make that clear. I do not dislike the episode. I think it's brilliant for what it is. And it is one of the best ones of its kind. I just don't think that it's... I don't find myself rewatching it, It's not one that draws me back in. It's kind of a one and done for me.
Well, I suppose you've already had the novelty of Sarah Jane returning, haven't you?
Yes.
By that point.
Yes.
Gets me, though. Every time. Is it my turn for my next pick?
Yes.
My 6th pick.
Is it 6th or 7th?
Well, it was 5th. It would be 5th, but we snapped on Asylum with the Daleks.
That's right.
So it's my 6th pick. Returning to Series 6. Not too far after the one I just talked about, actually.
Yes.
This one's a very popular story. The Doctor's Wife.
I nearly put it on, but I didn't. So no snap.
Right. So, the Doctor meets the TARDIS. Amy and Rory have a very, very dark story. That's pretty cool. And it's written by Neil Gaiman. That's one of the big reasons people love it, because of the name that's on it. I think it's good. I don't think it's great. I'm not emotionally moved by it the same way others are. And the episode, by the time it gets to the point where it's meant to be emotional, I'm not. The reason why I think it is because I don't... In my mind, the TARDIS is not a person. The TARDIS is a machine, organism thing. Great. But I'm more moved by the TARDIS in The Parting of the Ways than I am in The Doctor's Wife. and it's not even a person in that. It's a godly being.
I'm more affected by what John Sim does in Series 3 and turning it into the Paradox Machine, where the interior just looks sick. It looks unwell.
The Master abused the Doctor's wife. And he abused his own wife, apparently.
And he abused himself.
Exactly.
The John Sim Master is a bit of a prick.
Meat and gravy. Hot, sticky, fat, blood-red food. But The Doctor's Wife is a good story, neat little episode where the Doctor meets the TARDIS, and it's cool. But I don't think the feels justify its score that people give it. I don't think the... Fair enough if you think it's like a 10 out of 10, whatever, that's fine. If that's the emotional response you have to it. I don't think the emotional response it gets quantifies its high status. I think it's good, but overrated.
There it is.
What is your 6th, 7th?
5th.
I think it's your 6th. You did Christmas Invasion.
Yes.
You did Asylum of the Daleks.
Yes.
You did
School Reunion.
School Reunion. That's 3.
Wedding of River Song.
Wedding of River Song. That's 4.
Now I'm on my 5th because I don't think I've done any of the others.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I'm going to go... Okay. Bringing out the big guns for this one.
I've got a funny feeling I know what this one is.
It's a Moffat one.
Oh, it's not what I thought it would be. There we go then. Oh.
Is
it that one? Is it the one I'm thinking of now? The second one I'm thinking of?
It's one that I know for a fact you and I both really like.
Oh. Okay, it's not the one I'm thinking of then. Oh.
However, my next pick, my number 5 pick, is The Day of the Doctor.
Oh, yes. Now, one of the main reasons I'm sure you put it on your list is because it's number 1 on TWM.
Yep. I don't want to say too much about what I think of it because I've got a lot to say when we get to it eventually with Jake.
Mm-hmm.
Really like it. Find it an incredibly satisfying story. As a 50th, it's okay. As a even though it was 3 years before the 10th anniversary, as a 10th anniversary for New Who, it's fucking great.
Mm-hmm. I think it might be Moffat's funniest Doctor Who script.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's really strong. It's so good. But I just don't think it's... For as a script as big and as significant and as bombastic as it is, and what it could have been, it's just... It's good, and it's very rewatchable, and I really enjoy it. But I just don't think it's a god tier story, you know?
Well, I love it, but it's not. It's not number 1.
Yeah.
It's not number 1 on the DWM. It shouldn't be there. That's a bit too high.
It's so fun to see David Tennant and Matt Smith play off each other, and obviously John Hurt is terrific in it, and Billie Piper steals the show in it. But against John Hurt, she is incredible. But also, I think my feelings towards this episode have been impacted by the series finale 2 years later.
Yeah, I was talking before about how the Big Bang was affected by the Silence arc, how the Impossible Astronaut was affected by Wedding of River Song. It's a bit similar here.
And also the fact, like, this is a personal preference thing, but I know they're older, but I really would have, at least in voice cameos, liked to have actually properly had all the living Doctors in it, you know? like actually heard Peter Davison on the intercom, like have them have banter, even if we don't see their faces, even if it's just, you know, old stock footage where we cut to them in the intercoms, but just have their voices on the intercoms talking to each other, just so we can get all the living Doctors in one story together properly. And obviously the Baker cameo is great, and I'm not going to touch the Eccleston thing because he, you know, all the shit he went through, that's completely understandable why he said no. Disappointing that we didn't get to see him, but I actually support his decision to say no. I just don't think it's as good as it could have been. It is still very strong though, very entertaining, but it's lessened over the years, and I don't think it deserves to be number one on the DW.
No, that's the one big problem, is that it's number one,
Yeah.
which puts a big target on its back. Because any story that's number one is going to have that, unless it's like actually amazing,
Yeah.
you know. So I do understand why it was, because it was fresh
Yeah.
when they did that magazine poll. But yeah, it's not number one.
No.
Now, my next choice for an overrated story is also from Series 6.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very harsh on Smithy, haven't I? A Good Man Goes to War.
Interesting.
You didn't put it on your list.
No.
That's what I thought you would.
I nearly did.
Okay. In the underrated stories video, when we were talking about Last of the Time Lords, I mentioned that I was going to bring up the Space Jesus characterization of the Doctor again, but in a negative light. So, I'm not sure if this is a controversial opinion, but I, for the reasons we stated in the underrated video, don't mind it in Last of the Time Lords. In fact, I love the story, and I don't mind the Christ thing because of the way the story plays out.
Yeah.
But I don't like it here. And the reason why, comparatively, is because that's what the story revolves around entirely. This episode, A Good Man Goes to War, in its title, is metaphorically stating the Doctor's heroic position in the universe through the eyes of Riversong and whatever. But it doesn't... it's so style over substance. They gather together a bunch of villains, like that's the Headless monks, and that's when the Paternoster gang come together, and it's reflecting almost Star Wars event level thing. Like, it's almost like trying to be Stolen Earth, but without actually earning it, because we don't know these characters. It's kind of lame. Like, it's very heavy on hype, and it's exciting, and there's a big twist at the end, which I'm not a big fan of, but some people are. River's the baby of Amy and Rory. It's a blockbuster episode, but I feel like it falls a bit flat.
Yep.
Because everything it's trying to do doesn't feel earned.
Yep.
When I hear Riversong's narration over the episode saying, "The Doctor fights because he's a good man that goes to war," like almost like he's this mythological thing, it doesn't feel right because the story doesn't really illustrate that in a way that feels earned, like the way I feel like Last of the Time Lords does. Decent episode, overrated.
Yep. Well said.
Your next choice.
Power of Three.
Power of Three.
Yes.
Is that a popular story?
Yes. I've seen it be very rated. You know, I've seen a lot of people talk very positively about it purely because they really like the Doctor, Rory, and Amy dynamic.
And there's also an episode that features Brian Williams as well.
And he's great in it.
Yeah.
My issue comes with, obviously, the obvious complaints with the
end.
the Chibnall villain.
Oh.
And it just being a very bland villain and a terrible resolution. But my bigger fundamental problem with it is even though within the episode the characters are written fine, there's this, because of the overarching narrative which is present in, even though they were, isolated episodes, is this foreboding feeling that they're going to go soon. So like, okay, let's have a Amy and Rory centric episode before they fuck off into the ether, But because of Asylum of the Daleks and because of this segregated nature of this series, they feel like cardboard cutout versions of what was in Series 6 and what was in Series 5. They just don't feel as real as they should, especially for such a homebound episode. There's not much beyond that. I get why people like it. I just personally don't get out of Amy and Rory the things that I really liked about them, especially in Series 5. That's why I think it's overrated.
It's also the introduction of new unit, which is a bit forgettable.
Yeah, I forgot that Kate Stewart was in that episode.
Yeah. She's a very bland character.
Yeah, I forget that Kate Stewart wasn't introduced in Day of the Doctor.
There's that one.
Because she's pretty good in Day of the Doctor, but...
It's weird. There's a lot of bad Series 7 stuff that's good in Day of the Doctor. I think it's just because the script was focused. But yeah, is that all you had to say on the Power 3?
Yeah, I don't have much to say about it. I'm not emphatic about it. I just find that it's not as strong of a character story as people sometimes say.
For me, it's the worst ever Sonic Saves the Day.
Yeah.
And it's not even set up. It just happens. And that's the end of the episode. Bye-bye.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
I want to move on from Power 3. Your next one. Is this your last one or you got one more?
No, there's 3 more, I think, for me. How many have you got left?
I've got 4 more because I'm one behind you.
Okay. Well, it's a good. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you brought up a very good point about Moffat through multiple episodes, one being Asylum, another one being Power 3, botching Amy and Rory's exit arc. Because my next choice is The Angels Take Manhattan.
Snap. Take it away.
I've put 2 Weeping Angel story on this. Oh. Now, if you're the kind of person that doesn't care about plot holes, fine. That's fine. There are a few occasions where minor, nitpicks here and there, I can let them slide because obviously sometimes even when, writers make mistakes, you can look past certain things to make an overall story work. And that's great. I can't do it with this. Why does he not just take a fucking bus and see them in the past? There's no explanation for why. He only says that the TARDIS can't get inside the force field. So why can't he? Everyone else can. Every other fucking human being in existence can. Even when I was 13 or 14 when this came out, I think I was 13 going on 14. So when I had very little critical mind, I did not get emotional when Amy and Rory left. Do you know why? Because the story doesn't make sense. And I'm sorry if that upsets you and you like this story because it's a emotional end to, Amy and Rory, who are very popular companions. But I don't like it because I think this is not the ending that Amy and Rory deserved. Not only because, like I said, I have my issues with the plot in the sense that it just doesn't make sense to me, but also I don't think they should have gone out this way. And, people are going to come and be like, well, you're not supposed to want and, supposed to be surprised by companion deaths or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. I think it would have been so much better had they left the Doctor on their own free choice. There was a little bit like that in the God Complex. It was a bit more mutual there. I think it would have been so much better had their exit been, we are done, goodbye. And just imagine a scene with the Doctor in the TARDIS basically having to accept that he can't see them again. They don't want him anymore. The fact that someone doesn't want... This happened, I think, with Tegan, with the Fifth Doctor. But these two people that he's been travelling with for a few years, or however long it's been, maybe, I think it's like 100, because obviously timey-wimey, but he's grown very, very fond of them, especially Amy, the sense that he's known her since she was a little girl. The fact that she says, we want to have our own life, and that's it. It's over. I think that would have been so much more interesting than what we got. And it's too American. River Song didn't need to be in it. Don't like the whole fixing whatever thing. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot I don't like about the story. I'll get more into it in an in-depth video, but that's my first sort of thoughts on my problems with it.
It's very telling that the best thing about this story is a deleted scene animatic written by Chris Chibnall that's genuinely moving. And
Where was that in The Power of Three?
Yeah. Well,
to be fair though, there was that one scene by the fountain that I quite liked.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. But in Angels Take Manhattan, it felt again style over substance, which completely overshadowed the exit of guys that come so close to being great companions in the Pantheon, but because of Series 7, they ain't. And it's a shame. I just don't think it's as good as people say. And I personally don't find it moving.
And also, this is, even though I had my criticisms of the Angels a little bit in Time of Angels, they really feel like a gimmick in this.
Yeah, you could have had any. It just feels like marquee value at this point. It's like a special attraction as opposed to a legitimately just the right choice for this story. Because you could have. I mean, you couldn't call it Daleks Take Manhattan, but, Sontarans Take Manhattan. Obviously not a threat anymore because Moffat changed them. Nothing inherently wrong with that, but in this story that wouldn't have worked. But, any monster, insert them in. Again, Vashta-Nerada. Hey, man, I wish the Vashta-Nerada had been the overarching kind of recurring villain as opposed to the Angels, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, it just doesn't work for me. I get why it does work for a lot of people, because people generally are drawn to kind of those emotional stories. Just for me, the emotions were overshadowed by the bleh.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you have 2 left or 3 left?
1, 2.
2?
2.
I have 2 left as well, I think.
Huh.
I'll just double check. I think I have 2 left.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got 2 left.
Okay.
So should I go first or you?
I'll go first because you did, and even though we snapped.
Okay.
Doomsday.
I knew this was coming. There was a few parts you mentioned before that I was like, it's going to be Doomsday, it's going to be Doomsday. I'm like, actually, no, it's not. But I knew I had to be on this list. Had to be. I just saw it coming.
Go watch my overrated moment video from last year's calendar.
Oh, was your unpopular opinion?
Unpopular opinion. I do enjoy the episode. Obviously, it's fun seeing the Daleks and Cybermen face off. It's just the beach scene doesn't do it for me. Moving on.
It's a very You've mentioned before, when it comes to Series 2, that even in episodes you really like, there's little moments where the series arc is in it, and you're a bit like, not big fan of that. However, the overall episode is dominant. Absolutely. But because it's the finale, it is actually quite prevalent in that.
Yeah,
isn't
it's even though obviously the Daleks and Cybermen stuff is great fun, when it reaches this kind of EastEnders ending doesn't quite do it for me. That being said, it led to the best series in modern Who, so you're number 2.
Well, number 9.
Number 9.
Whatever. Well, whatever.
Well, you're second to last.
I'll give my thoughts on Doomsday when we review it eventually.
Yeah.
So my 9th choice, I feel so bad because I've been targeting old Smithy this whole time. I'm gonna have to do it again.
Oh no, I do have 2 more left. I just missed one. They blended together. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Well, my 9th choice is another Matt Smith episode. The 9th Matt Smith episode I've chosen so far. Hyde. So why do people like Hyde? Because it's gothic. So Series 7, obviously
and Verity Lambert is in it.
Yeah, oh yeah. Series 7 obviously being the
best.
Movie of the week was the theme.
Yeah. And this one was horror.
This was gothic horror, which is a fundamental part of Doctor Who, especially like 70s, like Tom Baker era.
Did Gatiss write it?
No, it was
He should have.
no, I think it was Neil Cross.
I feel like this episode, sorry to interrupt, but I feel like this episode would have been so much better if Gatiss had written it, because he understands, even though obviously he's generally a more goofy Doctor Who writer, you look at him in interviews and documentaries he's made, and The League of Gentlemen, he understands not just horror, but specifically gothic, Hammer-inspired horror.
Oh yeah, The Unquite Dead.
The Unquite Dead, exactly. There's signs of that in there.
But
Yes.
on the contrary to that,
Yes.
one of the reasons I really don't like this episode is because said gothic horror is interrupted by Matt Smith and Clara, and within this story, to me, in terms of Smith's era, it is the equivalent of Tennant and Rose and the Idiot's Lantern. That level of irritating. And what that does is it completely ruins it, because I can't get gripped by the horror, because the Doctor and companion are a masquerading bunch of idiots, teenagers. There's also a bunch of weird time travel that I don't know why they did it, just like, oh, because whatever. The ending sucks. It's horrible. The fact that they leave and then he goes back and goes, wait, no, they were in love. Like the little monster thing was in love with the fucking... Oh, they did the same thing in Time Heist as well. And honestly, it's boring. Like, Hyde just... And there is one other reason I really don't like it. It's kind of a personal experience problem I have with it. The first time I watched it, when it came out, I vomited all over my shoes. So yeah, that was a bad experience. But
it's like, sorry, small anecdote. I may have told this on the channel before. Like superhero movies and stuff after Endgame, you may have figured I just don't really care anymore. But I was on the bus once and I was approached by a guy who I haven't seen in ages, but we get along really well. And we usually talk about comic books, and he came and sat down next to me. And I was like, oh, sorry, can I go in the aisle seat because I'm going to be getting off soon? He's like, yeah, sure, of course. So we swapped seats. So I was in the aisle. And then he said, so, did you see the new trailer for Batman vs. Superman? As soon as he finished the sentence, as soon as of Superman came out of his mouth, I projectile vomited down the aisle of the moving bus. Like right on cue, out of nowhere. I was feeling fine before it, but it was like the fucking Exorcist. Anyway, sorry, that's really gross, but it's really funny.
reflects the quality of that film.
It's like I knew. Anyway,
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this is Hyde is an episode with, you know, the pictures you hang up and, oh, look, it's their ghosts. Oh. And there's like weird portals. And I'm like, yeah, it's a cool idea. But I just don't get gripped by the horror. because it's Series 7 and it's silly and stupid and corny and all about the power of love, and Clara's in it, and it's just, God. Hyde sucks, and it's overrated. Your 9th choice?
Yes. I'll be super quick and super snappy. Name of the Doctor.
Name of the Doctor.
Name of the Doctor.
You've been one of those people that's actually defend that episode before.
I do defend that episode, and I think it's really good. But I was defending it to the people who criticize it too much. I'm in the middle ground, where
So you're saying it's underrated and overrated?
yes, it's very divided. But those who highly rate it, I'm like, it's not that good. And
it does have a very
it does too
questionable decision from Moffat.
It's only saved by the structure of it, the pace of it, the flashes into classic series. By the skin of its fucking teeth, it gets away with Clara being a part of the entire lore. But that's a personal preference thing. Anyway, yes, moving on.
Did you not mention John Hurt?
Yes, and the ending's great. The ending's fucking great. Of course it is. It was so exciting. It was so like, what the fuck?
But why is it overrated? You've just defended why you think it's underrated. You just put it on an overrated list.
Oh, the Clara shit, man.
Yeah.
The TARDIS and the overall lights on it, and it's a Clara episode in an episode called The Name of the Doctor. And even though I know she's the window into us, but because she's at this point,
the impossible girl, run you clever boy.
It doesn't that part of it doesn't
Yeah.
work for me, and that's why I don't think it's as brilliant as people say, though the cliffhanger is fantastic, and there's some great moments in it.
And also on rewatch, I found I'm becoming less fond of Richard E. Grant's The Great Intelligence.
Well, he does. I just wish that fucking. I wish he got a chance to be more camp, because Richard E. Grant is he can be a very big actor, and he's just the whole time sitting like this. He's like doing a very boring...
I mean, he's quite serious in Logan, but that's a very different role. It's very good.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, moving on. That was it.
So we're now up to our final 2 choices.
Yes, and this one may take some talking, and we're running low on battery, so I'm gonna...
So I've gone through and picked 9 Matt Smith stories to be on this list, which I think is evidently clear. I think the Matt Smith era is very overrated. That was my unpopular opinion last year, for last year's calendar. And I was tempted to pick a 10th.
Yes.
I was thinking Day of the Doctor.
Yes.
But I do really like that story. It's not number 1, but I do really like it. However, for the purpose of this video, I have decided to pick a classic Who story.
Ooh.
One that might hit you a bit hard. The Sea Devils.
Floor is yours.
The Master's great.
Yes.
The Doctor's great.
Yes.
But apart from that, it's kind of a shitter version of the Silurians.
Yes.
Why is it overrated? It's very high on the DWM. Very high. It's like up there with... I think it's like on the same pedestal as like Zygons and Ark in Space and all that. The plot is like Silurians without any of the political intrigue. There's some of it, but the story focuses on style over substance. Its highlights its highlights are mainly to do with the fact that there's a lot of action scenes, bombs, sonic screwdrivers, boats, sword fights. It's great. It's fun. It's a good, fun story, but it ain't the Silurians.
Yes.
And if it wasn't for the Master, it would be average. Though I do like the design of the Sea Devils. I do like the design. but I do not think it's one of the best Pertwees. I think it's one of the weakest Pertwees.
Okay.
What's your 10th choice?
Okay. It's from the Russell era.
Going here again.
And it might antagonize you a little bit. Here we go. Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways.
Oh, not that one.
I'm kidding.
Oh.
I'm kidding. I'm just doing that to soften the blow.
Oh.
I fucking love those stories.
Oh, God. How can you not like that one? It's like the second best Murray Gold score. How can you not like that?
End of Time.
Okay.
Just go watch our End of Time defense, because it's kind of a backhanded defense from me.
This is a weird one to talk about, though, because there's a lot of people that hate it.
But in terms of, culturally, if you talk to people and say, I don't want, talk about TV and you say, I don't want to go, people will probably know David Tennant's last words, or, they'll know it's David Tennant at least. And I just, there we go. That's, I just, We'll get to it. I don't want to leave on a cliffhanger. I want to give you some more. But
so much food.
There's stuff I really love about it, but it's an overblown,
blood,
completely over the top.
Fat juice, hot gravy. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine.
And that, kids, is how I made him. Yeah.
Tell us what you thought of our choices and why you think controversial.
And why? And I can't even say it. Anyway.
You sure you can't say it?
No, I can't say it without laughing, so let's move on.
Come on, say it. Spit it out.
Why do you think Series 6 was actually the best?
I've seen that on Twitter.
Of course.
The Gandrazani man has seen that on Twitter. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video or loathed it and got something out of it. I don't know.
Was this video overrated? Let us know.
Hey, there you go. Tell us what you think of our choices and maybe we'll have a discussion. Maybe we won't.
Yeah, we never know. We'll find out.
That's me.
Yeah, I guess we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
In
Day 16.
Day 16.
Day 16. The Genesis of Androzani Advent Calendar.
Don't drink and drive, kids.
For 2019.
Stay safe these holidays.